We're going to do two things today. The first thing we're going to do is talk about Jewish burial customs and rites, because we have a professional at our table, a professional burier.
I'm just a hole digger.
And,
Hole digger.
and then after we're done with that, we're gonna decide if we think Jesus was buried according to Jewish rites and principles and rituals. And then after that, we're going to talk about the Odyssey, because we went on a field trip. Those of you who didn't come with us, I think you'll still enjoy. Hello, my dear.
How was that?
Nope,
It's
all
great.
you.
What's that?
Oh, I love that shirt. All of you will appreciate the discussion, but real quick, this is only 1,400 words. Jews, from the very beginning of time, have believed and taught us to believe, to embrace life and to accept death as a natural part of life. And Jews have always believed in the immortality of the soul. And they believe that a new world is coming, and most Jews also believe in the resurrection. Not all Jews, the Sadducees never did, but the rabbinical and the Pharisees believed in the resurrection. Now that should sound very familiar to us, because that's kind of what we believe. That's what Jesus believed. He learned that from the Torah, that he learned from his mother. But let's take a look at some of the typical rituals and practices that have to do with taking care of the dead. And I think it's interesting that we know some of these things, because our neighbors, we should get to know our neighbors a little better. What do they expect when someone dies? What do they do? How can we, hello my darling, here we are, yep, plenty of space right there. But let's start with this has nothing to do with you. Let's start with the dead body. That's the first thing we're gonna do.
Jeez.
Nothing to do. It just happens to be a
Wow.
coincidence that there
Yes,
came
darling,
everything.
yes.
According to Jewish belief, the body has to be washed, and it is never embalmed. And this washing is done, oh yay! This washing is done usually by a professional washer who learns the craft. She's called or he called a cherva kadisha. Actually a job that you're trained for. And I looked at one of the training videos that is done with a CPR doll. Yeah, you know, they don't use, clearly, they don't use a real, but where to wash, how to wash. And there's one for a man, there's a male cherva for a dead male, and a female cherva for a dead female. And now in terms of creation, some modern Jews do get cremated, but others just wouldn't dare. Now, I don't know about you if you've ever observed a cremation, but after the ashes, but they're not really ashes, more like debris. You think about it as debris, because some of the things just don't burn. So, I was just talking to Rabbi about this. He said, of course not. Tell your class, Donna, we would never do that, because
We would
never cremate. And it isn't the burning, it's the debris after the burning is collected, and then it is crushed. The debris is crushed, and he said, we would never crush our
What's the
dead
reason?
like that. It's crushed so it can get into an urn, because there are large pieces, depending on the evenness of the burn,
Okay.
large pieces of bone and
Okay.
sinew and cartilage, things that don't burn at the same level other things burn.
I've handled many of those ashes, and they're all pretty small, all the same size.
Because
Like
they're
they've already been-
because they're crushed. But if you saw it, one of the things we had to do as chaplains was to go to New Haven, Connecticut had a lot of street people. It had surrounding areas, homeless. And these people we had to go and view a cremation so we could relate and speak to people who were thinking of doing it. And one day was a young man, and we were all there, a group of chaplains, and one of us got so upset about this. The body was put into what looked like a casket, but was really a cardboard box. And then these sort of rollers start, and you go into the oven, and the oven is shut. Well, this man, one of the chaplains, he was a seminary student too, he was so infuriated, burned in a cardboard box just because he was poor. Where the rest of us were like, well, what do you want to put him in? You know, like a good piece of furniture, it's getting burned up, you know.
How much money you have to put you in a cardboard?
No, see, I didn't even know that because
Right, I mean, I don't know, do they put you in something else of it?
No,
What
I
did
think-
she say?
I think it's just a standard
Container.
I have
container.
seen
It's a
it.
container.
Yeah,
I have seen the coffin, like the person is in the coffin, then the coffin is rolled into a curtained area, okay, and then it's sealed off. That's the end of the viewing. After you visit it, and then the body is probably removed, and the ashes may be placed back in the coffin if he's gonna be buried or something. But they don't display the body in a cardboard box, they
No.
put the body. In Jewish tradition, the body has to be buried within 24 hours. And this is believed to be respectful for the deceased, no public viewing at all. But why do you think there's a 24-hour time limit? Well, it's interesting.
Deterioration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They don't embalm.
no embalm. And of course, this comes out of the desert, you know, where it's incredibly hot, unembalmed, well, even embalmed bodies just decompose very quickly. But people say it's best for the deceased body, and it's also best for the family, I think, of the deceased, and we'll talk about that. And it has to be buried, the body has to be buried in an unadorned casket, has to be wooden, it's usually a pine casket, absolutely has to be biodegradable. And it's interesting, when I was talking to Rabbi about that, he said, well, of course it has to be a kosher casket, you know, it has to be a kosher casket, you can't have any metal on it, no decorations. And it has to be buried in a shroud, which is called a tachrima. And rich, poor, male, female, everybody gets buried in the same shroud because God said, you know, we're all the same. Now, the body is always buried with the head of the dead on the west side facing east. And interesting, no machines should be used, no tractors, no backhoes, to dig the grave or to fill the grave. It should be done by family or friends. And if you go to a Jewish funeral, there's a very good chance at the end you will be offered a shovel. You know, you sort of get on a line if you so desire. And the shovel is there. And at Tour Tuesday, we talked about that. Nowadays, someone said people are handing you a flower to go up to the grave and leave a flower there.
Sometimes they still offer you a shovel, they did it.
Oh, they do? At a
Episcopal.
Christian? Oh, interesting.
Do a lot of people take it?
You're talking about Christian burial?
At the Episcopal church, when my brother-in-law was buried
Very
in their memorial
interesting.
garden, they handed my sister a shovel and she almost fainted. She had no idea they were gonna do that.
Oh my
And the
goodness.
whole family, you know,
It's,
put a shovel of dirt on the,
now a Jewish cemetery very often will either have a table with a wash bowl and pitchers, or just like a sink, like a permanent sink. Because when you leave the cemetery, you should wash your hands, because dead bodies are putrefying, right? They're kind of, it's not that there's anything wrong with them, it's just that it shouldn't be taken from the cemetery into the world. And you should also go somewhere, usually with a group of people, and have a meal. It's a mitzvah, it's a commandment. You should eat a meal, and in the Jewish definition of a meal, it's supposed to be meat and wine is served at the meal. And the 24-hour limit is also psychologically designated healthier for the family. Get it done quickly. Put the body to rest. We all know the stress of funerals. It seems like they could go on forever. And there you are, right? You have to sit in this room with a dead body, and you can't really tell jokes or, you know, you hug, you tell everybody, you know, you do though. I mean, people
Doesn't he
giggle
look
and they
good?
tell, but sometimes they can last up to, my father's 3 days. You know, 3 days, and you sit there for like, oh, I don't know, in the afternoon 3 hours, in the evening 3 hours.
And then the following day's the funeral.
Yeah.
And then people are toasting the dead. You know, my father, Order of Ancient Hibernians, an Irishman. People are drinking, and people who drink don't make good decisions, so you get arguments, or you get jokes, and then people get angry that they're having too good a time. Well, that doesn't happen for Jews.
I had a relative in Canada. The father was, of course, it was at home. These funerals were
Yeah.
at home. This was Irish. And then one of the sons came in, lifted him right out of the casket.
Because he was so sad.
It
And
took him for a ride.
have you ever seen somebody try to get in the casket
my
with
God,
them? You
no.
know,
Yeah,
they get,
no, well, I mean, stories are.
yeah, because they're stressed, it's trauma. But that doesn't happen for Jews because there's no visitation with the deceased family until after the burial.
That's a good thing.
After the funeral, the family goes home, they're exhausted.
Sure.
And then a period of mourning begins, and it's called Shiva.
Mhm.
You sit Shiva, and that lasts for 7 days, and the family receives guests in their home, and there's conversation, and there's prayer. And one of my favorite prayers, the mourner's Kiddush, or Kadash, depending on how you want to do it. And all during this time, the family of the deceased, they don't take care of any personal grooming. You can't go to a beauty parlor or a barber shop, and you can't wear makeup or jewelry, and you wear very simple clothes. You're not supposed to have sex, you're not supposed to have great food, you know, this is for Shiva. It's a time to be sad, and you're supposed to look sad, you're supposed to show your sadness, so you're supposed to act sad. And next comes a period, it's kind of normal, but not quite normal, Shoshin, which lasts for 30 days, and things kind of go back to normal, but you still pray, and you still sing, and if the deceased happens to be your parent, then you're supposed to pray for 1 year. Every day you say a prayer for the dead for an entire year. And if you are invited to a funeral service, whether at the cemetery or at Shiva, you should dress modestly and, you know, be reasonable, don't wear clown clothes. Dark colors, don't send flowers. Sometimes you'll bring a sweet to the person's home, a box of candy or a cake, and the host will serve that during Shiva. But instead you're requested to make a charitable donation, tzedakah. And I think we pretty much do that nowadays, don't we? People don't order flowers like they used to. You know, you used to could smell a funeral a mile away. You walk by, you just knew. Now, if you're attending the funeral of an Orthodox Jew in an Orthodox community, almost everything would be the same except for the body washing, the tahara. There would be, it would be a little bit more elaborate, a little bit more professional. But one thing, I think the most obvious difference between a Christian and a Jewish death would be the presence of a shoma, and we talked about this, which is sort of a bodyguard for the dead body. A Jewish body, dead body, is never left alone. They, and I think that's kind of true for, not positive about this, for Muslims too.
It's true for the military.
Sorry?
They have a guard, the military will have a guard, active duty.
Right,
Oh,
and
yeah.
of course Jesus did too, at his tomb when
Yeah.
Roman soldiers were there, so nobody could sneak the body out, but this is different, this is right next to the body. There's, once again, a male shoma for a deceased male and a female for a deceased female, and they stay with that body day and night until the body is buried. And there are professional societies, burial societies, who do this for you. And there's a good reason, because people believe a dead body can't protect itself, right? So they're liable. People could abuse the body. They could take advantage. They could go in somebody's pocket, see what was waiting in there, take something that he might be holding, desecrate the body. So that's why you need a bodyguard. And here we go again. Mourners are required to recite the Kaddish or the Kaddish, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It is the most lovely prayer, but it's so unusual because it's a prayer that you recite when someone is dead that never mentions death, never mentions a dead person. Not even the name of the person is recited in the prayer.
Can you give it to us in English?
Yeah, oh yes, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about it, but I want you to Google it, and when you get home, it's a Kaddish, a Kaddish. It's more of a prayer in which you declare your faith to God. When someone you love dies, you're upset, especially if that someone was a child or someone who died tragically, unexpectedly, unjustly, right? So whether you say it or not, you're upset with God. How many times, how could you do this, God? 2 years old, a baby, bone cancer, how could you? So you doubt. You say, God, how could you let this happen? Well, this prayer, the Mourner's Kaddish, is an affirmation of God's love for you and your love for God. So you don't mention death and you don't mention the deceased. Instead, you promise the ruler of the universe. You say, Our Father who art in heaven, no matter what darkness that I am in now, despite my confusion about your motives, I promise that I will love you forever. And I promise that I will work with you to nourish the world until it is filled with your holiness and your goodness and your love.
That's beautiful.
It's absolutely beautiful because it really makes it easier to wake up the next day. You know, that there's somebody working on this world. It didn't end when your loved one ended. Now, Jewish cemeteries, Christian cemeteries, pretty much the same. Jewish maybe a little bit has that feeling of being more holy. So I'm from the city, so we didn't have a lot of green spaces. So you went to a cemetery, it was like a park in a way. That's not the case in a Jewish cemetery. You don't go there to read or to sit in the sun. You go to pray. In fact, Jewish cemeteries are even considered more sacred than synagogues. Sacred
Oh, my.
space, yeah,
I have
Do
a
they do
question.
mausoleums or just in the ground?
both. It just depends, it depends on what kind of a Jew you are, Reformed, Conservative, Orthodox. Some Jews would never be buried in a mausoleum, only the ground.
This lady over here is.
I have a question.
Oh, yes,
When I was younger, I don't know the source, so it could have been just totally off the wall. I heard that Jewish dead were buried standing upright. Never heard that?
never heard that,
Okay.
never
It
heard
made
that.
sense in
Had-
terms of Woodland Cemetery.
Had to be,
places like
had
that.
to be laying down facing Jerusalem, that's the only thing I ever heard. But have you heard, way too often I'm afraid, that Jewish cemeteries, you'll see it all the time, are the sites of very destructive anti-Semitic attacks, really. Tombstones are toppled, and they're spray painted with swastikas. Jewish cemeteries are not someplace you go to enjoy the outdoors, you know, you just go there to visit the dead. And before you leave, like if you were going to a cemetery, maybe you'd leave flowers for your mom or something. Jews leave a rock on top of the tombstone, to show
Oh,
that they've been
remember
there.
that in Schindler's List?
Schindler's List. Still today.
They put
Yep,
stones.
yep. Now, before, and you can talk about this, before you bury your loved one in a cemetery, and I think this goes for Jews and Christians, you have to decide to vault or not to vault.
In New Hampshire, they were required to vault,
Oh, you are.
but we said it different though.
Oh, are you going to encase it, are you going to?
No, it allowed the body to go to the earth, so you put your vault in upside
Upside
down
down,
on concrete slabs, not a sealed lid.
so that it protects from cave-ins,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. Now, a grave liner, which is what I think you're talking about, is obviously less secure because it's missing a top or a bottom. If you encase the whole thing, 4 sides, that'll keep the body in there. But if you have the bottom open and you just have a box with no bottom and you put that over the coffin, the body goes into the ground. Or you can do it, some places will do it the other way, leave the top open. But that doesn't help with cave-ins. But it, obviously, it changes the amount of time it's going to take for that body to be absorbed into the soil, which is the whole point. And I did look up, vaults and grave liners are not required by law in the state of Florida, but individual cemeteries may require one or the other. But this is what was surprising me so much. I couldn't figure out the burial stories about Jesus. Where was Jesus buried? In a cave. And I'm like, everything I'm reading about Jewish burials, you have to be buried in the ground.
And I was thinking that the women took his body, well, according to this, the women would not have prepared his body.
No,
The men would have
and
prepared his body.
absolutely. And so I said to Rabbi, I don't understand. If he's not buried it, and he goes, Donna, what do you think a cave is? The cave is the ground. The cave is considered to be part of the earth. So if you bury someone in a cave, you're actually burying them. And if you, and you went into the cave, didn't you, at the Holy Sepulchre? Didn't you go into Christ's burial cave?
It was a church.
Yes, the church was built over
Yeah.
over the cave.
And they had a slab that
Yeah.
supposedly was where Jesus
Yeah,
was
that-
buried.
But apparently you can visit at the Museum of the Bible in Washington DC, you can visit a replica. And you'll see there's a shelf, more like a built-in rock table in the tomb for the body. And then above the body, there's like these little shelves for ossuaries, which are kind of bone boxes. After the body decomposes, the bones are collected and then they're put in a box for safekeeping. Now, who's responsible for getting, this was another thing that surprised me. Who's responsible for getting Jesus in that cave? Joseph. And maybe Nicodemus, if you read John's gospel. So yay, Joseph, he's considered a hero. Joseph of Arimathea took the body, but you would consider him to be a hero, right? Well, wrong, say a lot of people. A lot of people don't believe that. They don't believe he was an honorable man at all. No way did he honor our Savior. Because where is it written that Joseph did any of those things that we just talked about, right? Who washed the body? Nobody, right? That body was just put in there all bloody. And the shroud, Joseph did bring a shroud with him. That's true. And he did bring spices. In fact, John, I think, says Nicodemus carried 100 pounds of spices with him.
Could it have been that sundown was coming and they just rushed it?
They did. They did rush it. They had to get him in there, or they wouldn't have been able to keep the Sabbath laws. But people will say, God gave us the Sabbath. You know, he didn't give us to the Sabbath. Joseph could have done it. And where was the Shoma who stayed with Jesus in that cave, right, in that tomb? Jesus was in there all alone. Nobody cleaned him up. He was covered in blood. And I don't know if you knew what Joseph did as a living. He was a Supreme Court justice. He was a member of the Sanhedrin. And who turned Jesus over to the Romans? The Sanhedrin, right? They were the ones, they were the Jewish judges that handed him over to be crucified on the cross to die. And that is a version of a story that's been told for a long time. If the Jews had not rejected Jesus, then he would not have died on the cross. So it's just another one of those if-then stories. And we'll talk about that next week when we talk about Mark finishing his gospel with these add-on stories, the verses that follow verse 9 in chapter 16 of Mark's gospel. So next week we're going to look at some of these if-then conspiracy of the cross stories. Jesus didn't die on that cross. He just fainted. They call it the swoon conspiracy. He just swooned. They took him down. Even Pilate was surprised he died so fast. And it's just amazing. And these are today, like literally today, not like 2 centuries ago. But if you don't mind, let's move to the Odyssey. And
Oh, yes, I'm on here.
yeah, even if you didn't see the Odyssey, listen.
Good movie.
Amazing. We invested 3 hours plus. So let's see if you think we've invested wisely. This work that we saw, whoa, it was based on a real work called The Odyssey, written by Homer, Greek writer, almost 3,000 years ago, full of shipwrecks and monsters and gods and goddesses and lots of men and women and a faithful dog. It was so sweet. And some say that it actually influenced the New Testament stories not everyone agrees with that, but we all agree Greece, especially Athens and Jerusalem, they were really the centers for Western civilization, so much of what we take seriously and try to live today. And some people believe that both Athens and Jerusalem are still on an odyssey a journey. Odyssey is a journey to try to find the answer to the question. And here's the question that the Odyssey is trying to answer. How can we, mere mortals, bring order and a common purpose to this chaotic world that we're living in? Now, doesn't that sound reasonable to you? How can we make this make sense? What can we do? Well, it's going to take a miracle, right? Well, good thing, because we saw lots of miracles in the Odyssey, and we see lots of miracles in the Bible, and we need miracle makers, I think. Homer, who wrote the Odyssey, he used all the gods and goddesses and was a polytheistic society. And the New Testament used God in, roll tide, I'm not gonna answer, in 3 verses. I mean, how do we think of God? 3 persons, yep, the Trinity, Trinitarian God. And there are 24 books in the Odyssey. And there are 27 books in the Old Testament. No, sorry, New Testament. Now, have you ever heard of the story of Gilgamesh? Gilgamesh.
Familiar, but no.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna do it one day. That was written almost 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. It's like the oldest story. And it's been the basis for a lot of epic works. Gilgamesh is a hero. He's 2/3 God, but 1/3 man. And yeah, which that's the man part gets him into trouble, of course. And he has his version of Athena in the story. She's called Sidori. And he constantly lives on that threshold between life and death while he's searching for immortality. And some people think that we're there too. We are here to figure out how we can get there to live forever.
And you started with the Odyssey, now you've moved to.
Well, no, I'm just saying that Homer based his work
on
Gilgamesh. Yes.
Was Gilgamesh supposed to be a giant?
No, he was just a man. Enkidu was the big guy.
Oh, yeah.
Enkidu, and he was doing fine until women came into his life. That was the end of him. Bit the dust. He really did. Now, did Homer build on Gilgamesh? Absolutely, of course he did. And did the Bible writers, the New Testament Bible writers, did they build on Homer? Did they build on the Odyssey? Well, the Romans built on the Greeks for sure, with the Aeneid, right? The poem by Virgil. Emperor Augustus actually paid Virgil to write it. He's a hero, a Trojan prince. His mother is Venus, but Aeneas, the hero, is no Odysseus. Odysseus was our hero, because Aeneas is just too tender and sweet and pious. But Odysseus, did you think he was tender and sweet?
No.
No, he was very practical, very pragmatic. But how about the Bible and Homer? They're both written in Greek, different Greek. The Bible was written in Koine Greek. Homer was written in classical Greek. They both tell the story of a homecoming. They both describe a hero who gives his all of his gifts to get home. And I don't know if you noticed, when I went back and started reading to write this, very formulaic in terms of numbers, symbolism of numbers. Odysseus had 12 ships. Israelites had 12 tribes. Jesus had 12 disciples. And how would you compare the Garden of the Lotus Eaters, the Garden of Eden, right? And remember that scene that we watched at the Cyclops? Oh, it was so ugly. In the cheese cave, it was so great. And that's really true. There were cheeses hanging, dripping, preparing. The old way they made cheese, sort of getting rid of the whey in the water. How did the Cyclops seal that cave? What did he roll?
The stone.
Yeah, just like.
That only he could move.
That's right. No one could move that darn stone, right? And that should look very familiar to us because that stone sealed Jesus in his cave. It was another obstacle for our heroes. Now, for Homer, of course, the hero is Odysseus. Wants to go home to Ithaca, but first he has to face, guess how many tests?
12.
12 tests that can concern tricks and trials. And then he gets to live the good life with the ones that he loved. But it's going to take divine intervention. So after fighting the Trojan War for 10 years, it takes him another 10 years to get home because he has to face storms and nymphs and monsters and sirens and witches. And do you think, you remember the name of his wife, right?
Penelope.
Penelope. Do you think she's faithful?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh.
Unraveled, that's 20 years of unraveling.
Oh, very, I am so bad. I don't think she was one bit faithful, but how about his son? Do you think, do you remember him?
Yeah.
Telemachus? It's actually his son he doesn't know because Odysseus left when he was a baby and now he's 20.
But he knew of his father because of all the stories.
Oh, yes, and we
and
talked.
his mother telling him of his father.
Absolutely, which is how we know our Father who art in heaven or who walked the earth and then went to heaven and sits at the right hand of because he sent the Spirit to us. So talking about the reliability of reality in the Bible, I know you don't have to answer this, but think about, do you think that the Bible stories are actually real? That they really happened? Or are they epics, like the Odyssey, that they're just there to teach us lessons, how we're supposed to live now? But I did read, I'm not an expert on this, but I did read that Christopher Nolan, who was the director of this film, mostly kept the physical aspects of the film historically accurate. So the clothing, except for the pretend people, of course, but the real clothing, those helmets, I don't know how they looked, right? The props, the weapons, the ships, very, very impressive. Now the Odyssey was written between 725 to 675 BCE, and the Bible sort of 8th century to 2nd century BCE. It lasted a little bit longer because of the Talmudic period, the rabbinical period, where the rabbis were writing about the Bible. And Athens and Jerusalem, no doubt about it, both are two of the oldest and greatest roots of Western civilization. And as we look at the Greek civilization, keep your eye on Jesus. And I'm actually preaching about that this Sunday because we're talking about Peter, who takes his eyes off the prize. And when he does that, he sinks.
Yes.
And we could sink just like that, like a rock, Peter the rock, right? So follow the one who is sent by the God of all gods to lead you. And that was kind of the basis of the Odyssey. But I think it was harder for Odysseus to follow the gods. He leaves Ithaca with 12 ships, about 1,000 men, to go and conquer Troy for the good of his nation. But all 1,000 of those men, they all die except for him. And then 20 years later, the same hero, Odysseus, he wipes out another whole group of soldiers who were trying to get home. So they all followed Odysseus to their deaths. And that almost sounds like the Jesus movement. What happened to all of the disciples except for one? You know, they all died horrible deaths following. This was just Greek style, using Greek mythology. And did you know this isn't the first film? I don't know if you ever heard of a 1997 film with Armand Assant, who played Odysseus. And did you know that film, 2000 it came out? What was it called?
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yes!
That was based on the Odyssey.
Yes!
Yeah.
I didn't get it, but I didn't really watch it.
What was the name
It
of it?
was,
Oh, brother, we're out.
it was a spoof. It was so silly.
Yeah, well, they had to do certain tests, and
Yeah.
that was the only similarity I saw.
Stanley Kubrick apparently did some work. James Joyce, of course, Ulysses. But have you ever heard of the movie Contempt? I'm gonna try to find it. 1963. You know who starred in it? Brigitte Bardot. And it's about a guy like Christopher Nolan, who's making a film about the Odyssey. And it costs him his marriage. I thought that sounded really interesting. But for sure, the story of Homer is still very, very popular and still resonating. It's an old story, older than Rome. And some people think that Homer just gathered together a lot of old stories and just rewrote them. Like, for example, the Trojan horse. We get to see that really dramatically, even though it's a flashback. It doesn't happen in the Odyssey. It happened in the Iliad. But did you know that's not a real thing? It's a myth. It's not historical. There never was a Trojan horse. It's a great story, hiding in that 2 in the head and the rest of the guys in the stomach. And they offer the horse as a gift to the enemy, which was Troy, by the Greeks, who are called the Achaeans. That's Odysseus and his guys. They're led by Agamemnon. But we're told that it was Odysseus who invented the horse to trick the Trojans into opening the gates of the city. And we got to see what they did when they got out of that horse. It was horrific. I mean, burning, raping, murdering, women, children, soldiers, everywhere.
10 years of pent-up anger, they said,
Yes.
Yeah.
released.
And when they opened the gate to the city, they opened their anger. It was Odysseus who actually won that war, but now he wants to go home to Ithaca with his men and his ships and all the booty, home to Penelope and to Telemachus. And, but there's a palace full of suitors. Do you remember that? There are 108 single men living in Odysseus's palace, waiting for his wife to choose one of them to replace him. They
Was
think
that
he's
according
dead.
to custom or
Oh,
something?
yes. She's holding them off. She has to. She can't do anything else. She's hoping for the hopeless return of her loving husband, who I insisted on calling Odie the whole time. It was so long to write Odysseus. And even her poor son, 20 years old, he's strong and he's intelligent. He can't help her. He's absolutely powerless because he has to obey the law. And it's the law of Zeus. It's actually called Xenia. Xenia, the law of Xenia. It's an unwritten but very clearly established law of hospitality. And that's true, yeah, that's true for us too. Jesus said, you know, when you welcome a stranger, you're welcoming me. When you give a stranger a drink, or you clothe them, or you feed them, we are required by the law of God to establish guest friendships, not lifelong friendships, but if someone comes into your life, you treat them with dignity and respect, welcome them, providing baths, offering them food for free, and shelter, and washing their clothes, clean clothes. I wish we could do that for everybody here in Venice who needed it. This is the law of Zeus, golden rule, it's Torah law, sacred law. And Jesus learned this, right, from his mother and father and taught it to us. But I thought it was so sad in a sense. Do you remember the slaves in the film, in the palace, the female slaves? We only really got to meet Melantho, or Melantho, I think it's Melantho though. She was the little traitor slave.
Yes.
She told on, there were 12 of them, and they were required to serve Penelope, but also serve all these hanger-on suitors. And at the end, Penelope closes the female slaves out, saying, you belong with them, as if those poor slaves had a choice of what they were gonna do, right? But they were considered traitors to Penelope. And the weaving that you brought up, Penelope is seen behind a screen, separated, so the men could get a gander at her as they drink and eat and tell terrible stories. And she's weaving a blanket for her father-in-law. And nobody wants to interrupt her because it's something that she's promised to do in honor of her deceased husband. But when she's done with the weaving, she's gonna have to pick one of the suitors to marry, because she's trapped. But what does she do every night?
Unravels it.
She unravels what she wove
I see.
during the day. And Odysseus, we saw, he's trapped too. We saw him with his gray beard on that beautiful beach with that gorgeous model, Charlie, yes, from South Africa. She's Calypso. She's a minor goddess, but she's actually more of a nymph, I think. I haven't really learned the difference between minor goddess and nymph. And she lives there. It's the island of the Lotus Eaters. And when she rescues Odysseus, who washes on shore, she actually holds him prisoner there for 7 years. 7 years. She feeds him lotus flowers so he forgets where he's going. And I think that happens a lot in modern society too. Men will sometimes forget to go home because a woman is feeding him something. It may not be lotus flowers, but just affects his memory, right? But finally, Athena, she was my favorite character. Athena comes to Odysseus, and the two of them build the worst looking raft I ever saw. I don't know how they survived on that thing, to escape Calypso and the lotus flower. And you know, the big gods and goddesses like Athena, like Zeus, they allow, like Poseidon, make it even worse, they allow all of this to happen. Zeus, who is the big god, the god of everything, I didn't think he was a nice god. He almost seems to be enjoying this story, all the trials and tribulations. It amuses him, so he just lets it go on. And didn't it seem like all the gods were related to each other? Poseidon is Zeus's brother, and Athena's father is Zeus. And it's the strangest story. She's the goddess of war and wisdom. And mythology says that she was born not from a mother, from the father. She came out of his forehead which kind of makes sense, wisdom, right? But it's interesting. Zeus is listening to this story and he's actually pulling for Penelope. Come on, Odysseus, get closer to her. But there are so many obstacles. But Athena, who's the goddess of war and wisdom, she's slow in the beginning when it comes to rescue him. But for sure, Odysseus would never have made it home without her help. But it's clear that all the gods and goddesses loved hearing this story. And eventually, Athena has to become human. And she goes to Ithaca to help get the suitors out of the palace. And Telemachus recognizes her. And that's when he leaves his mother to go look for his father. And then he runs into those unsavory characters, Menelaus and his wife Helen of Troy, who was played by Lupita, I can't pronounce her last name, and something, and Gian, and Helen's twin sister, Clytemnestra. She was the evil sister, the murderess. She murdered her husband when he came back from the war because she had taken a lover. But yeah, welcome home.
Wasn't it because he had, no, wasn't it because he had sacrificed their child?
Which child? Oh, there was child sacrifice going everywhere. It was an honor.
But Agamemnon.
Agamemnon. But he's not the one who got murdered.
Oh,
It was Agamemnon, not Agamemnon. Agamemnon, I think, was married to Helen of Troy, right? No, Menelaus was. Menelaus was.
Agamemnon.
Yes,
was-
he got sacrificed
he was-
by his wife
He got
for
killed by the wife
sacrificing.
because
Yeah,
he
because
sacrificed the
their
child.
daughter.
But in your opinion, who was the most unattractive thing in the movie?
Well, the Cyclops.
Yes.
That's so
Polyphemus.
funny.
I think when they made,
Polyphemus.
See, and I
remember
would-
when they made the people into pigs, and
Mhm.
soldiers?
Oh my
I
gosh.
thought,
Don't even get me
Molded them
started.
like clay.
Yeah, molded them like that.
Yes.
Yes, we're
It
gonna
was
talk
amazing.
about Circe.
And
Sorry.
see,
Um,
what's funny to me,
You asked me
when you were
about
saying
this.
that, I'm thinking more of a person.
Oh, you're talking about,
I'm thinking of and I don't know what his name was, the man who was after Penelope, who was trying to control everything, who the shepherd boy had substituted for him. I don't know what his name was. He was one of the,
yes,
Main
he was
suitors
a
who were-
terrible cheat,
yes.
a terrible,
And to me, he
mean,
was the ugliest, 'cause I
self-centered.
wasn't thinking
Oh, he was
necessarily
the
of
coward.
physical. Yeah,
Remember
He
he
was
was
a-
standing
yeah.
back there going, you guys,
Yeah.
get the
Get
spears,
the, yeah, he was
whatever."
stood back
the
there,
spear.
Because he
grab
was
the
hiding behind-
spears, grab
Yeah.
the this as they're going,
It was,
but
I
do
wasn't
you-
thinking necessarily of the physical feature of,
I was
Cyclops.
thinking the Cyclops, I thought he was
I was thinking what you
absolutely
were just
hideous.
saying, right?
But guess who his
Yeah.
father is? Who do you
No.
think the father of Cyclops is?
Poseidon.
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 That's why Poseidon gets so upset with Odysseus and all the storms and the thunder and the trouble and the rock and the hard place and the six-headed monster throwing rocks at the ship and making him pass by the sirens. All of those obstacles were set up by Poseidon in retaliation for blinding his son, Polyphemus. In fact, Poseidon spends the whole movie trying to kill Odysseus. And there's so many bad gods and goddesses, like the Listergonians. Remember them, the robots, the giant cannibal robots, who were dressed in silver and they had their helmets, and they would just pick up one of Odysseus's men, knock him on the ground and eat him.
Who moved the trees though? It was in that scene. The trees would move and almost put the warriors in jail. Did you pick that up? The trees had the ability to move, to pin them in.
And I'll tell
I
you
didn't catch
something,
Yeah,
and
then
I
they stabbed him.
will come back to you with that name, I didn't
Oh,
think I had
yeah,
enough
yeah.
time. But that is one of the reasons that some of us do this today. Oh, I hope they will,
Oh, knock on wood.
knock on wood, because it is believed that good spirits lived in those trees. They behaved, you know, when they wanted the trees to move, they did. And when we knock on wood, we're calling the spirit to do what we want them to do.
You know, that's funny, cause I read that the knock on wood was knocking on the cross.
Oh, heavens,
Yeah.
no. Jesus knock you outside your head. Don't you know, can you picture Jesus saying that?
No,
Oh.
that it was good luck, because it was, like, if you were knocking on wood, it was like you were knocking on the cross, you were saying, be with me, Jesus. That's what I read somewhere.
Lord have mercy.
Not knocking on it like
Never
you're,
heard that.
No, but can you think of the cross as being good luck? It's never.
Never, yeah, never.
It's so tragic, so awful.
But we were saved
protection. It wasn't about luck, it was about protection.
by the cross, by
You
Jesus
knock on the
dying
cross,
the
protect
cross.
me.
Cross
No,
can
I've
be
never
No, but
heard
his death
that.
on the cross.
Is all,
too.
yeah, I'm sure, I'm
Anyway,
sure
that's
some
what I read,
people.
I just,
There are a lot of
But
cross,
let's get
cross
to,
stories, and they,
oh, yes.
people paid money to get one of those pieces.
They still do,
Cross.
they
Yeah,
still
of
do.
cross.
You can go
That was,
online.
that's a real Catholic
So-
thing.
Now, Scott's least favorite goddess, or minor goddess, or witch, but a witch with power, was Circe. Circe. She's the one who turned men into pigs, and she made it look so easy, right? Just boom.
it didn't look easy to me.
Don't look at him like you two are.
Ew.
Is she talking about us? No. But there were tons of sirens. Didn't you get the feeling that the sirens were all women and sea monsters? But there were some good people in the movie.
Well, aren't sirens, typically, the sea creatures who lure the men to them,
Temptresses.
So I know.
Temptresses.
and then
And
they
of
die in
course,
the water.
it originates here, but interesting. It's not a sensuous or sensual song that they're singing. They're actually singing the reality that no matter what you do, you will always be who you are, a creature. You will never be creator. And sometimes that's what we spend our kids' childhood teaching them, right? You're not God, you know, you can't walk on water. You're one of us, you know, you're a family member. We have to learn that we work with God, but we're not actually God. But how did you like Eumaeus, his servant, blind servant who was played by John Leguizamo? Yeah, we were talking yesterday. I had a hard time picturing John Leguizamo as a Greek swineherder. You know, he was faithful, but he could see the truth, of course. When Odysseus gets back, Eumaeus knows who he is, even though he can't see. He recognizes him, even though Odysseus is disguised as a beggar who must be welcomed into the palace. And this wasn't in the film, but I don't know if you know this, but Scott and Karen's daughter, Tara, was responsible for a lot of what you heard in the film, the music.
Really?
Yeah. So she's,
That's so cool.
yeah, so cool. Well, Lord Aeolus, who is the god of the wind, we didn't see him, but we sure did hear him, right? That was the windiest movie. But he doesn't give it to Odysseus this time, but in the epic poem he does. He has this old sack, the god of the wind does, and he fills it with wind and he gives it to Odysseus to get home. And what expression do we get from that? An old windbag, you know? You're just an old windbag. And there was so much wind and so much thunder. I mean, constantly thunder.
Here.
It was like the,
Yeah, like here,
Yeah, really.
say it again?
like here lately.
All the thunder.
Oh, yes.
You don't know where to sit in your house.
Thunder
I know.
and even in the palace, when the suitors want attention or when they're praying, they do this, which is to call the thunder, you know, it's nonstop, it's like mucho bronte, bronte is thunder in Greek, like, brontosaurus. What's a brontosaurus? Thunder lizard, yeah, thunder lizard, or a lizard of thunder. And there were plenty of those little suckers running around this film too. And
Did you like the film?
I loved it. I loved it. You have to go.
Yeah.
How did
Did you all
everybody
like
else
it?
feel about it?
I haven't gone.
I
Who
liked
went?
it. I thought it was very
went?
loud for me.
Uh,
I took cotton and had cotton because somebody else had said that it would be really loud, and I still plugged my ears because it was so loud.
I
for
couldn't
me.
hear a damn thing Anne Hathaway said.
Oh, it was so
Sometimes
loud
I
for
couldn't understand what they said.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
at key points, I thought.
Yeah.
Me too.
No, I couldn't. What did she say? When-
Yeah.
What
And
was that
that-
word?
When
That
they're
was the other side.
whispering at the end, their heartfelt love. I could hear Matt Damon, but I couldn't hear Anne Hathaway, Penelope.
But I just, I
Good
mean,
to know.
there were times when like you said, I couldn't understand what they were saying, and then other times it was almost
Oh,
painful
too
for
loud,
me because
yeah.
it was so loud.
Wow.
But I find that at the
Taking
theater
earplugs.
anyway. I mean, I
No, I
think the
was-
music at the theater most of the time just about blows me out of the.
I was good, but, getting back to Thunder, Zeus punishes Odysseus's men. Remember when they go to, the sun god's island and eat his cows? That's how he gets them, gets revenge. And Zeus also sends thunder to Calypso's island. You can see it in the distance and hear it too, you know, send him back, let him go. She had kept him hostage. And some people say that there's so many ties between Jesus and Odysseus.
That's just amazing.
Yes, so many ties. And the first one is, and if you think about this, this is true at the Last Supper. And we talked about this. I went back and tried to get a feel of this after we talked about it yesterday. Who was the first one besides the dog? When Odysseus comes back, who was the first one to recognize him as Odysseus? Because he's disguised as a beggar.
The old woman that had
It
stitched
was
his leg
his slave
from the scar on his ankle.
because of the scar. And remember who wasn't at the she's washing his feet, which is an offer of hospitality. When someone comes, you make them comfortable, you wash their feet and their hands so that they could eat. And she sees the scar that he had as a kid, Odysseus did. And when we go back to the Last Supper, Thomas wasn't present. He wasn't there with the rest of the disciples. So when Jesus comes back, you know, remember Thomas said, I'm not gonna believe it until I can actually put my finger in his scar. And
That wasn't the Last Supper.
he wasn't at the Last Supper. That's why he wants to see after the resurrection. That's why he wants to see the scar, because he didn't hear the promise from Jesus. And there are other feet washings in the film. But what about magic? Did you see magic in the movie? I don't know if I would consider the men being turned
I would,
into.
yeah, I would say that was magic.
What about in the Bible? Do you see any magic in the Bible?
Oh, yeah. Well, regarding the pigs, when the demons were in the men, please don't kill us, please don't kill us.
Exactly, Legion. That story
What
is
I never
said
got is, all right, so they jump over the cliff.
into
well-
pigs.
Yeah, no, I know, but who says it kills them?
Well, they drown. They
Spirit,
can't swim.
spirit.
Pigs can't swim.
I understand, but what about
They're
the
great
spirit?
swimmers.
All the demons go into the pigs, So the pigs drop off the cliff into the water, but what happens to the demon soul that had inhabited the pig?
It's gonna take a little magic for that, I think. Now,
I don't think that that's magic, I think that's the miracle,
interesting.
I don't think that's the same thing.
Different.
I'm not sure.
Oh, right.
I'm not sure.
I'm combining the film with,
Now, Jesus and Odysseus, and then we'll end it right here. We kind of admire them both. I think Odysseus was amazing how he got where he got through everything he got. And they definitely changed their worlds, both of them. But I don't think we love them both. I don't think we love Odysseus. We're kind of scared of him. We don't really trust him. He's the only survivor, time after time. But not like Jesus, right? Jesus actually sought death so that we could get away from it. And I trust Jesus. I don't necessarily trust Odysseus. I think Odysseus thinks of himself as first, second, and last, you know, where I think Jesus thinks of me first. And I don't think we can imagine a world without Jesus. But do you think the world would have been different without Odysseus?
Isn't he fiction? Or am I missing something? Is he fiction? Is anybody saying he actually existed and those things happened?
Well, what do you think? Do you think that those demons crawled out of Legion and went down the pigs' throats and then jumped off a mountain and then drowned in the river? Do you think that happened?
No.
You know, I don't know. I don't know. Was it is a symbolic story? Do you think that this character, as he is portrayed, do you think he was a good husband and a good father, a good commander? And I'll just leave you with this question, those of you who saw the film, and when you see the film, do you think that at the end of the film, when he gets in the boat with Penelope, and they sail off into the west, by the way, do you think he's sailing off to bury his men or to bury his guilt?
Oh, my.
So think about that.
He wants to go back to the dead soldiers.
Yeah, and
To
you know, it's
honor
very
them.
interesting.
Yes, to
Do
honor
I
them.
think he was real? Homer calls him polytropos, which means very complicated, very twisted, turning man. But she calls him a man. I think we've all known men who are survivors, who will do, man's gotta do what a man's gotta do to get back to his family, to save his country, to please his gods. I don't know,
I think
interesting.
women do that too, very much
Yes.
so.
Yes, it's just that Homer doesn't write about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
But I think that to be a good project. Thank you all. Next week, we're going to do swoon stories from the cross.